Welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Hartwell, and we are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. Unofficially, we interview women who are making a shit ton of money and breaking all the rules. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and I just wanted to put this episode out there as a little bit of an update. If you're a subscriber of the show, thank you so much. Totally love you and so appreciate your support. I also just wanted to name that we've been on hiatus for almost a full year. And now we are not going to be on hiatus anymore. We're bringing new content. I have a ton of interviews already created. They just need to be edited, produced, and released. And those are going to be coming out on a weekly basis every Tuesday as they did before. So I wanted to explain a little bit as to why we went on hiatus. Ironically, we went on hiatus in February of 2020. So before the real lockdown, quarantine, pandemic broke loose in the US. And then what kept us in hiatus was fear on my part. I'll be completely honest about that. I really believe in the energy of our projects, of our businesses, of our programs, and tuning into the energy of those entities, basically. What happened last February was I felt called to up-level Divine Feminine Leaders. So what that means is new branding, new logo, and maybe getting this podcast to have a real intro and outro with music, etc., and to make it a little more polished. Now, what I've learned more recently is that didn't mean that I had to stop doing the thing, but wherever I was in that moment, I made it mean I had to stop doing the thing. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And I know that it was a very difficult year, 2020, for many people, myself included. There was a lot of feelings, a lot of processing. I am empathic. I feel everything. I feel the collective. I feel the energy of people. This is why when I'm hosting this show and I'm interviewing people, sometimes I'll ask them to define what they're talking about to make sure everybody's on the same page. I can almost hear, it's not really a hearing, but I can feel into where our listeners are. And that's why also the episodes are varying lengths, because it depends on the energy of the conversation. When I feel like we're complete in the conversation, that is when I ask the guest to introduce us to their free gift or where we can find them online if we want to further the conversation with them, etc. So they always know this is a very free-flowing conversation. I would imagine that you enjoy that if you're listening to this particular episode. I hope that's a format that you enjoy. I would love to hear your comments and feedback on that for sure, because what I really got last year was more than ever, emotional intelligence is extremely important. And I knew that for a long time, but I think that I was able to step into a deeper level of emotional intelligence than I had for a very long time prior to that. So I'm grateful for that. As much as it was a turbulent year, as much as it was difficult, I'm so deeply grateful. I always am a person to look at the lessons that came out of it and look at the wins, right? Like I had some extraordinary wins, even though the podcast wasn't being produced every single week. I stepped into a leadership role with the eWomen Network, which is an international networking organization. I jumped on the leadership team actually in January last year. And then in June, heard about our managing director, the woman who leads the group, was stepping down and asked if anybody would raise their hands. And I immediately raised my hand and said, absolutely, I'm in. And so I was able to take on that, which actually ended up being kind of like a part-time job in some ways and is still like a part-time job. And it's such an incredible organization. So I will apologize in advance. Many of the women who I'm going to be interviewing are a part of eWomen Network, and I will reference that when I do their introductions as to how I met them, as I have in the past. It's a testament to what an incredible community can do for our businesses, for our personal lives, for our overall development in life. That was one very positive thing that came out of 2020 for me personally. My business reached new levels that we hadn't reached before. It was an extremely powerful year, and I'm so grateful for that. And now I'm stepping into 2021 with deeper visibility, with deeper connection to the people who I serve, and more expanded bandwidth to come to you and to be able to serve deeper. I'm going to be really honest, some of this was fear. We got really woo-woo in Divine Feminine Leaders, and I got really afraid. There are definitely some things that I was working through, but I'm seeing now that that fear is not necessary. I'm not perfect. You're going to hear some episodes. I'm going to say some things that I feel embarrassed now about, which is partially why the episodes didn't get released at the time. I'm going to preface the episode with those apologies. I really believe in continually learning and evolving and growing. And so that's part of my path, and not being so afraid of what other people think or if I'm going to get criticized. I think one of the biggest things that came out for me was when people start criticizing us, it is because we are hitting a chord and we're getting more well known and we're hitting a different level of visibility than what we have in the past. I really hold to that. Like, you don't have haters until you've made it. And I've said that to people before, but it's a little bit different when it's you. I'm not going to lie. It's not even that the haters have come yet, but I am so energetically sensitive and I've had concerns about my sensitivity with that. But I've also seen how 2020 really allowed me and is still allowing me to expand and work through these fears, these emotions, this idea that I'm going to lose everything in order to become who I need to be. It's not that I need to lose everything. It's not that any of us ever needs to lose everything. But what we do need to lose is lose the fear of what other people think of us. When we know we're working from our heart space and that we are showing up authentically and really true to who we are, trusting that people will feel that, trusting that people will know that, and having faith that my message, that the messages of this podcast, of this work, will reach the people who need to hear it. I think I've mentioned it before. I always do an incantation, which is a verbal prayer before we record any episode. It is that everything said here is in 100% pure Christ consciousness frequency and higher, that we are serving the collective, that we are helping people, that this blesses not only you, the listener, not only myself or the women that I'm interviewing, but also the people who created these programs that are allowing us to share this, right? The microphone company and the software company and the website or the podcast hosting platforms and all of these different ways that all of these people that have put together these programs, everyone that they touch and everyone that you touch through the entire ripple effect, which is like the entire collective, which is everyone's souls. If you don't know what collective means, all of a sudden I'm like, I say that a lot, but to me, that's the collection of everyone's soul. It is everything in the universe. And I really set a very strong intention and a very strong expectation that this work blesses you. Maybe an episode is so chock full of information that you need to listen to it over and over and over again. I give you permission to do that. I do that with my teachers, with the mentors that I listen to, with the coaches that I hire and have followed, and the books that I listen to. I devour them and then I devour them again, and then I devour them again, and then I devour them again. And this is not for every single book or class that I listen to, but this is for a lot of the content when it really hits me on a soul level and I'm like, wow, there's so much there that I don't think I got the first time through. I just want to invite you and give you permission to listen and re-listen and understand that you will get what you need to get. You will get something new out of every single new lesson, and you will get what you need to in every exact moment. Like, everything is always working out for you. So I so appreciate you so deeply. My heart is so full in this work, and I've often questioned, why am I doing this? But when I didn't do it, I didn't feel the best all the time. And I feel so lit up after every single conversation. I'm so alive in the conversations. I hope that comes through to you. My passion and my knowledge of how important it is that we as women raise other women up, that we pull them up. This is why becoming the managing director for eWomen Network was such a hell yes in my body. And it was a no questions, right? Like just automatically, as soon as the opportunity arose, I was like, yeah, that's my next step. I know that's my next step because that organization is all about empowering women and having a community of women empowering women. It's not that it's exclusive. We have men who are members of eWomen Network as well, and they understand that they are there to help women succeed in business. So again, I really appreciate you being here with me. I love you so deeply. I really would love to hear whether you comment on YouTube or I invite you to reach out on Facebook, whatever that looks like for you, whatever you're most comfortable with, and let me know, what do you want to hear more of? Maybe there's a speaker that you're like, "Oh my god, I could totally devour more of her. Can you talk about this? I heard you say this particular thing and maybe you didn't drill down into it. Can we have that conversation?" I would love that feedback because at the end of the day, this is for you. It lights me up, but it's for you. It's for me. It's for all of us. I feel so honored that you take time out of your day and all the things that you could be consuming that you're choosing to listen in, to learn from us, and I just appreciate you so deeply. So, this is Celeste Hartwell with Divine Feminine Leaders, and I will see you on the next episode. This has been the Divine Feminine Leaders Podcast with Celeste Hartwell. Thank you so much for joining us today. There are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you have chosen to spend your time with us. That is not lost on us, and we are deeply appreciative. If you want to find us online, find all the links and the free giveaways that were mentioned in the show, please join us at celestehartwell.com. That is CELESTEHARTWELL. And you can link to this episode as well as any other episode there. If you enjoyed this episode and the content that we shared, I invite you to subscribe so that you get notifications every time a new episode is released. Or share it with a friend. If you know another female entrepreneur who could benefit from this information, we would love for you to share the love. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.